Use the Force, Luke.
Live long and prosper.
I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Shut up and take my money.
By Grabthar's hammer, what a saving.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
X never, ever marks the spot.
Winter is coming. You're a wizard, Harry.
Stay a while and listen.
Hey ho, Kermit the Frog here.
Bow ties are cool.
So say we all.
This is a Play on Nerds. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 38 of A Play on Nerds, our wonderful Ultron episode.
Ooh, ah.
As usual, I am Jarman, and I'm welcomed by my lovely co-host.
Oh, I'm Steve, apparently.
You're a lovely co-host.
I'm lovely. All right, I'll take it.
You're lovely today. Some days you're not, some days you are.
True. Today I trimmed my mustache, so I'm lovely.
No evil twirly mustache.
No evil twirly mustache for me.
So both of us have seen the movie Age of Ultron, and this week we're going to be talking about later in the feature with a good friend of ours, which we'll talk about later, all about the history of Ultron in the comics, and so we can get a better understanding of where that character came from and how it relates to the movie that we have both just seen. And we actually didn't give away that many spoilers.
Yeah,
so
we stayed very spoiler-free. I'm actually really surprised how spoiler-free we stayed.
Yeah, just minimal things that don't really talk about the plot or anything. So you can listen to this whole episode and feel pretty safe.
But real quick, just to get a spoiler out of the way, Snape kills Dumbledore.
It's true.
Just to throw that out there, make sure everyone knows. Yep, there it is. That's... My wife's going to hate that. It's going to be great.
Yes, let's play the whole thing. The whole damn thing. Sorry, Anna. Sorry.
Yeah, how about that?
So yeah, there won't be much spoilers. You can listen to this whole thing safely, and if you haven't seen the movie. But if you haven't seen it, you should go see it. It's fun, and everyone else in the world is seeing it. Apparently, it's making billions of dollars.
Billions and billions of dollars.
Yep. But before we jump into that, just a quick update from your lovely co-hosts. What have we been doing for the past 2 weeks? I know you all want to know. Steve, what have you been up to?
Well, the past week has mostly been filled with work stuff, and we are finally got some new space to have some of our workers get their own desks and own offices. So because of that, we are spreading out, and so it's been a big transition of making new shelving units and figuring out what we're going to do with all this new real estate that we didn't have before.
If I'm right, I saw before that you work kind of like in a warehouse or something.
No, not quite. It's very warehouse-ish as far as the level of inventory and how things are labeled, that sort of thing. But we always need more space. That's the end. The end result is we always need more space. So we finally got a little bit of it. But that came at the cost of one of our coworkers getting promoted and leaving. So I also got to go to a very nice breakfast on the company on Friday, where we had morning drinks and a huge breakfast, which made me a very sleepy Steve for the rest of the day.
Some mimosas, perhaps?
Mimosas, but they came in like a bowl chalice.
Oh, nice.
It was huge. It was giant and
the best
amazing.
kind of mimosas.
Yes. But really, there's not much else other than making big adjustments at work, that sort of thing. How about you?
Cool. Well, beginning of this week, if our listeners missed it, we did a 24-hour game stream on twitch.tv. And I know for many of you out there, you've never heard of this, or it just is not something that you've been interested in, but I didn't think I would care about it, but I started getting involved, and it's a lot of fun. You get to watch people play video games, and you can kind of keep it up in the background, and it streams live. And so we have a Play on Nerds channel on there. We have several streamers, including Patrick, our good buddy, who basically started the whole thing, and the Glitzy Gamers, which are two lovely ladies who go on Mondays. But for 24 hours, we gamed straight for 24 hours.
I completely had mentally blocked that out of my week.
Steve was there for a good 3 or 4 hours, something like that.
We did Team Fortress 2, followed by some Hearthstone, I believe.
Yeah, it was a good time. So check in on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, Saturday evenings on East Coast time. We start usually around 8 o'clock those days. So check it out. We have some fun, and we're adding more to that soon. So it's exciting stuff. That took a lot out of me, though. I was there for many hours. So that was earlier in the week, and after that, saw Ultron, and now we're doing this.
Yeah, now we're here with you people.
Isn't that great?
It's time for Nerdy News.
What do you bring to us from the world of nerdy news, Jarman?
Oh man, I go to my favorite website almost every time, hoping to find something to piss you off with, either Sasquatch or ghost news. But
good. I'm glad you have a goal.
I do. Usually you talk about bugs or birds, and I talk about ghosts.
Today will be no exception. Go on.
Okay. And so my story this week is about a mysterious landmass that appeared overnight off Japan's coast.
Okay.
And I found this story through Mysterious Universe, another great podcast. They have a great website with lots of blogs. Paul Seaburn, this guy, wrote this article about it. But basically, this landmass has suddenly been rising from the sea, connecting to the land next to it. And it's the name I was trying to practice earlier before the recording, which was off the northern island of Hokkaido. On April 24th, residents saw this rising out of the sea, and at a pace where this person was out there tending some land, and like an hour later, she looked up and the land was up to her head level. So it had grown that fast, and they're not quite sure what's causing it. It could be a lot of things. It could be some kind of weird effect after the 2011 earthquake and tsunami. It could be some kind of landslide that happened elsewhere that have made this land suddenly rise, but it's very odd. They've never seen anything like it. So it's interesting. I love mysterious stories like this we can't quite answer.
Here's my problem with that, is Japan itself was formed by an underground volcano that erupted and forced up and created islands. So I'm not quite sure why they think this is some weird thing.
Well, because of the rapidity of how fast it happened, it makes it unique. It's that Japan was formed over, how many hundreds of years that it was pushed up slowly out of the ocean. But this is happening like in front of their eyes. It is happening. So most
massive landmass changes happen violently and quickly.
But how quickly is quickly?
In the case of a giant erupting underwater volcano, pretty quickly. We're not talking about the movement of tectonic plates here.
Yeah, but can they make, right in front of your eyes, it suddenly appears and you can't see any disturbances anywhere else?
Look, if David Copperfield can disappear the Empire State Building, I think Mother Earth can pull this off. That's all I'm saying.
We just found our answer. It was David Copperfield that did this.
That magic bastard. Or maybe Chris Angel, that fucker.
That's what they did. They made land disappear somewhere else for a magic trick, but they have to put it somewhere, so they just shoved it. They shoved it in Japan's waters.
See, magic explains everything, people. Fuck science.
Magic. So what's your nerdy story of the week?
So it's about bugs.
Yay.
It's about how ants are actually being studied, and they think that they're going to be able to use this model to better increase the potency of spam filters in email.
Weird. It's a weird connection.
So for a long time, they assumed that ants worked off the policy of they had smells that they knew and smells that they didn't. They attacked smells that they didn't. But what they've come to discover is that ants do have smells they know that they identify as friendly smells, the smells they grew up around, their nest mates, so to speak. But then they go out into the world and they meet an intruder, and they mark that smell in their memory as a negative smell, and that's what they attack. But ants can come into contact with smells they don't recognize, and they don't identify them as intruders. So what one ant may identify as an enemy or an intruder, another ant may not. So for years and years, they had ants face off against each other to see how they reacted to one another. So rival colonies. And sometimes the ants wouldn't attack, and they chalked it up to the experiment went wrong or the ant was uncooperative. But what they're realizing now is that what one group of ants is trained to smell and attack, another group of ants may not be.
Interesting.
But by such, the ants that are trained to attack and identify those enemies are very good at it, versus one ant that's not necessarily great at everything. And they're thinking that this is a good model for maybe, as I said, a spam filter, because what in current spam filters, they have giant master lists of untrustworthy clients and programs and websites. But if this list is incomplete, they just flat out miss it. And all it takes for a hacker to get in is to bypass one major level of security. They believe that if they went with this more ant-based look, a hacker would have to get past 4, 5, 6 levels that are each made to assess specific threats versus one major one.
Interesting. So you're basically your spam filters smelling out the bad stuff.
Right. We're rather you would have 5 filters, one that looked for questionable attachments, one that looked for questionable parentage as far as where the link came from, one that looks for questionable verbiage, all these separate ones that look for different things, and therefore create a more complete filter as opposed to one master one, which could be flawed.
I like all this looking back to how animals work to apply it to our technological lives.
Right, and actually the comparison they made then is the ants to our immune cells. Our immune cells in our body are only made to search out one specific type of pathogen. They only react to one, with the understanding that if one immune cell doesn't recognize that virus, another one will come by and will recognize it.
Each one's different.
Yep. And so then they chalk that up to ants, and now they're trying to figure out how they can bring us into the technological age using very old school tactics.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Ants are some crazy motherfuckers.
Like Ant-Man.
Coming
out soon.
Ultron.
Movie connection thing.
We're sad. We know.
So good at segues.
We know. We're the best seguers.
So for our main segment here, we're going to talk to a man named Geoffrey Combs, who goes by Geoff. And I met him through a series of events here in Orlando and in Florida. Last time I saw him was at a comic book convention, MegaCon, because he is a big comic book nerd. And I also spoke to our good friend Ryan with Positively Nerdy, who, if you're a longtime listener, you know he was on the show a while back. He was not available this time to join us so we could have the 2 comic book experts together. But Geoff knew quite a bit of information, so we're definitely good.
He had enough expertise for both of us, so I'm not worried about it.
Which doesn't mean a lot, because Steve and I don't know that much about comics.
We're ignorami.
Yes.
That's really...
But basically, we wanted to ask him about the history of Ultron and just give us an idea, a more full idea of what this character is all about, where it came from, and how it got to be in this movie. And we learned a lot. So here's the interview. Please enjoy, and we'll talk to you on the flip side.
On the flippity flop.
I'm such a nerd.
Yes, we are.
All right, so now we're starting our interview with Geoffrey Combs, a friend of mine here in Florida. He lives in Gainesville, and we're going to talk about Ultron, and he knows a lot more than we do. We don't claim him to be an expert unless he wants to say that he is, but he's going to talk to us a little bit about Ultron before you guys see the movie. Maybe you've already seen it. But Geoffrey, what gives you qualifications about being a comic book nerd, or would you say you're one?
What qualifies me? Well, let's see here. Been reading since '79. Actually, at the last MegaCon, I got the very first comic book that I ever owned on my own, autographed by George Perez, who did the cover art for it, which was an issue of Avengers.
Oh, wow.
To what he said, signing off on that meant that any rights to my parents suing him for loss of income is, waived at that point. Anyhow, like most comic folks, started off as a bit of a Marvelite. My brother read DC. I'm currently in the process of sorting all of our comics because Greg left them here. He lives up in Seattle. And I'm in the neighborhood of 25,000 mostly Marvel and DC comics right now.
Physical comics sitting in your house?
Yes.
Jesus.
Because I had to pull them out of storage because storage was not climate controlled.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm in the process of sorting them, putting them in alphabetical order, bagging and backing them. After about a month and a half, I've made it to the end of Aquaman. Thus, I am done with A.
So that was you and your brother's comics, put together?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Because he is 6 years older than me, so his comic book collection dates back a little bit further.
Wow.
Man, that hurts my head just to think about. Holy shit.
I mean, how much space does 25,000 comics fill up?
Well, I do have a walk-in closet that would be the envy of many, but unfortunately it is mostly filled with long boxes right now, as is a section of my bedroom underneath windows. I'm currently looking at 25 boxes, each one with about 250 of them at a piece in there. Jeez. So, yeah, it's kind of nutty. The best part is when I get done with this, because about 60% of the comics are his, because, again, he's had more time. We're going to get a pod and ship a whole bunch of stuff from storage up to Seattle. That's going to be fun. Yeah. So, and keep in mind, my brother has not been in Florida collecting since 1996, so his collection is even bigger. So, yeah.
God.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, what would be the ideal situation of storing and presenting those? Like putting them in a nice big case where you can see them all?
I don't know. I mean, I genuinely don't. I mean, it's enough that we've got them bagged and backed, and I have like little shipping stickers on the side where I can put in like, all right, this box is Batman to, Batman, or, like Adventure Comics to Aquaman, things like that. So at least have an idea of where they're at. So, but actually displaying them, only ones that we'd ever put on display are some of the big ones, if you will, such as Avengers number 55, the first appearance of Ultron.
Ooh.
Yeah, because
nice segue.
Yes, I'm good at this sometimes. Anyway, but no, I do in fact have that. No, we weren't alive for that one. But Marvel used to produce little small digests as well as giant books where they reprinted old stuff. I'm talking like from the 80s, not talking about like the masterwork collections. And that's where I first found out about Ultron. And I said, you know what? I'm going to try to find that first appearance. And when I was about 10, I did.
Damn.
What would you say is your most rare comic? Is it the Ultron one?
Oh, God. That is an entirely different story. The most expensive and rarest comic that I own, and I'm kidding you not, because my mother actually gave us this gene. I believe it is a Millie the Model #1 from 1954.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Millie the Model? What is that?
Oh, it's a Marvel property now, by the way. But she may be turning up in the, and I'm not joking about this, she may in fact show up on the Netflix shows that Marvel's doing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was a comic book for girls that my mom just picked up on a lark and accidentally gave to me and my brother at Christmas about 15 years ago.
But what does she do? What is Millie the Model? Does she have powers or something?
No. It was a comic book for girls in as much as that comic books for girls were, romance comics and such as that. Millie's adventures of, in the world of, modeling, exactly kind of what it sounds like. Only the world of modeling from the 1950s. So,
that's so strange.
Isn't it though?
That's a really rare comic then.
It is, because girls didn't really collect a lot of comics then. And on top of that, with the fact of anybody who owned it, who in the world took care of it.
Yeah.
And she happened to keep it inside of like an old Funkin' Wagnalls encyclopedia volume. So it remained flat. It was in good shape when I got it. I put it, bagged it, backed it, and happened on a lark to look up on, Overstreet one day, and, my eyes goggled out of their head. I'm like, wow, this is worth like 10 first appearances of Wolverine. What the heck, man?
Wow.
Yeah, it was, because again, rarity. It's what the market will bear. Anyway, as to comics that people would actually probably, care about, doing the first appearance of Wolverine, Hulk 180 and 181, because he appeared in 180, but anyway, first appearance of Punisher, Spider-Man 129, what else? I unfortunately have the very first appearance of Deadpool, but that is an entirely different story that you can talk to me about another time. I think that's New Mutants 97, but anyway, I do in fact have a lot of first appearances of various characters that if they made their first appearance between about 1980 and now, 1980 and I'd say the mid 90s. I got goth in the 90s and went off to Vertigo for a while. So,
Vertigo Comics.
Oh yeah. Well, I know of which I own a lot of first appearances of those characters too. But anyway.
So if you were desperate for money, you could cash out pretty well for a lot of these things.
I could, in fact, do that. I do, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, have the pack rat / hoarder gene. So I honestly don't know. I mean, because if I look immediately from the left from my comic book collection, there's my second edition D&D books. Because why? Yeah. Anyhow.
Well, very cool. So I think that established you as a person who can talk with some authority on the subject.
Or at least more authority than us. That's the important part.
Well, exactly. Yeah, because Steve and I have talked about this before, but I love the idea of comics. It's just I've never been able to get into them and I want to. It's just I tried to. It seems so hard to break into it now. How do I break into it? Because there's so much decades of history with Chinese character. How do you catch up on that kind of thing?
that's what comic book stores are trying to figure out as well, because with sales continuing to decline, even if the Muggle dollar is coming into it via the movies, it is hard to break into comics for people.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think is another reason why DC is resetting their universes again, and why Secret Wars is kind of, to me, looking like Marvel's own Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Or they're kind of going to reset things again as well.
That's what it's looking like. I can't say for certain. I'm not buying anything from either of the big companies until we get onto the other side of this, because there's only so many infinite secret crises of doom that I can deal with right now.
Sounds fair enough.
So before we break into the main topic, I'd like to play a bit of a game with you. It's more of an opinion piece. And I'm going to go ahead and call it Who Wore It Better?
Okay.
But I'm going to go ahead and name a character, and I want you to tell me who your favorite person in film has played that character. Who did it best?
All right.
So my first one, Spider-Man. We got Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield. Which one did you like?
Okay.
And more from the 70s. There's a live-action 70s TV show. I mean...
Oh my God, there's so much from the 70s.
It was, and that was just kind of awful. But this is actually a split decision. Because Tobey Maguire played a better Peter Parker, Andrew Garfield played a better Spider-Man. Now, that could have been writing.
All right.
That could have been writing, obviously. But when it came down to it, Maguire actually looks like, the typical nebbish, nerdy guy. Andrew Garfield kind of came in looking like, to me, an Abercrombie & Fitch model.
Or a One Direction guy or something.
But yeah, he was straight out of a boy band, exactly. And I'm just like, I can't buy it as Peter Parker. On the other hand, the way he played Spidey was perfect. And I'm not even a huge Spider-Man fan. Of the major characters, he's maybe in my top 10, but regardless, they did a decent job with the films, but it's a split decision for me.
I like it.
What about Batman? We have a lot of choices. We got Adam West, Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Christian Bale,
Affleck.
Yeah, we have a lot of terrible choices.
This is one in which I say it, and if you're a comic book nerd, you stop, you look at me, and you go, "Okay, I think you have a point." If you're not a comic nerd, then people ask me who the hell he is, and that's Kevin Conroy, the guy who did the voice.
Actor.
Yeah, because he's been doing Batman for 20 years now. And when I read Batman in a comic book, it's his voice I hear. There's no two ways about it. When it comes to the movies, Clooney was utterly forgettable in a bad film. Kilmer could have taken the role, but decided not to. Keaton, that's another weird split decision. Keaton actually played a good Batman, but I couldn't buy him as Bruce Wayne. Whereas, strangely enough, I could buy Clooney as Bruce Wayne. The Christian Bale stuff, it's kind of an Elseworlds Batman, because it's clearly a world in which there are no superpowers. So, but I still liked his performance in it, and I think that Warner Brothers, as they're wont to do nowadays, dropped the ball in not getting him for the updated attempt at a DC cinematic universe.
Yeah, I agree. They probably wish they could have gotten Bale for that, but he's just like, no way, no how.
Right, but he's since come back and said, "Well, I could have done it." It's like, well, make up your damn mind. So anyway,
the next one, Captain America. We got Chris Evans, and then back in 1979, Reb Brown.
You're forgetting the 1990 version as well.
I did forget that one.
That was a good one. I saw that when I was a kid.
He had rubber ears on the outside of his costume because they couldn't bother to cut ear holes into it and stick his ears out of it. Anyway,
I didn't know that.
No, it's Chris Evans hands down on that because, the guy who did it in the 70s, God, he had one or two other roles in some crazy stuff that ended up on Mystery Science Theater. Yeah, and Evans makes you completely forget the fact that he was in a couple of bad Fantastic Four films.
All right, so here's one that the one I'm most interested in is the Hulk. Because we've got Lou Ferrigno, Eric Bana, Edward Norton, Mark Ruffalo. We got a lot of interesting choices.
I guess Lou Ferrigno plays the Hulk, but he didn't play David Banner in the show.
That's true.
Fun fact for you, every time you've heard the voice of the Hulk, and even in the modern stuff, that's Lou Ferrigno.
Isn't that weird? I remember hearing that.
So, but anyhow, as to the actor for it, I really liked Edward Norton doing it. And from what I've heard of the backstory stuff, he kind of saved that second Hulk film in as much as for writing purposes, which is part of the reason why he didn't end up taking the role again because, problems with the producers and whatnot. But I actually liked Edward Norton for it because I think you harken back to Fight Club when you see him up there anyway. And he is... I honestly don't know how tall or how much the guy weighs, but he always looks like he's 5'5", 145 pounds.
Frail guy, yeah.
And
He's a scientist.
And frankly, that fits for Bruce Banner. So
Okay, good.
I thought Eric Bana was awful for that because he had played like a couple tough guy roles before that. And I was like, why is Eric Bana being Bruce Banner? He's too much of a big dude. Like, he can handle himself in a fight.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Anyways.
All right, so this one I had to get a little bit more obscure. Thor.
Oh, God.
Who has been played by Eric Kramer back in The Incredible Hulk Returns. He had one appearance.
Where he kept calling the Hulk a troll.
Jonathan Rhys-Davies, who played him on the Marvel Action Hour.
Okay.
And then, of course, Chris Hemsworth, who we all know and love.
Right. You got to go with Hemsworth on this. I mean, how can you not?
Who are those other bastards? No one knows.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, well, I remember one guy from I don't know. He was always cast in the 90s as well. Oh, and you are forgetting somebody, though. You're forgetting somebody who also played, quote-unquote, Thor, Vincent D'Onofrio in Adventures in Babysitting.
Yes. I did see that one, but he wasn't officially Thor, so I left it off the list.
I know, but he did get the helmet, and he was handed the hammer at one point, and I'm pretty sure there was a fantasy sequence, but anyway.
Oh my God, that sounds awful.
Yeah. Well, actually, Adventures of Babysitting, fun film. It's pure 80s camp, and Elizabeth Shue pretty much at her hottest. So
accurate.
There you go.
You doubted my nerdity. Anyway,
Never.
So that's who wore it better, everyone.
Woo!
We have official opinions on who played the best hero that you know.
all right.
So now we move on to our discussion of Ultron. We want to say once again that Steve and I are ignoramuses.
Yes.
And we only know what's been said in kind of the buzz around this movie about, who is Ultron? Where does he come from? But I feel like you have a greater understanding of this character since you actually own his first appearance comic book.
Yeah, I know it's crazy on that. But anyhow, let's see here. Ultron. Ultron's first appearance, as mentioned, that would be Avengers number 55. He's invented by Hank Pym. Hank Pym, who, of course, the Pym particles can shrink and grow things. I'm not sure why he got into AI research, but there he was.
Completely unrelated.
Why not? I mean, he figured out everything he could about growing and shrinking at that point. So, I guess he decided to get into AI work. Anyhow, he was trying to basically create something that could, help the world, Unfortunately, it came out damaged. The first time you actually see Ultron in the flashback, I should say, it's Hank Pym wearing his giant man costume, but with a lab coat over it. And that's how you know that he's doing science stuff as opposed to superhero stuff.
Of course.
Oh, yeah. And Ultron looks like a garbage can with a small 60s round speaker attached to the front, the same malicious evil eyes, and a pair of Doc Ock arms. Oh, and he's on wheels. That's what we should forget. And he's buzzing and spurting and calling Hank Pym Dada.
So he can't do stairs very well either, probably.
He has the Dalek issue there.
Yes.
But it's a very rudimentary AI. And the thing is that, Hank's kind of surprised that he succeeded. But the thing is that Ultron immediately rebels and runs off, and you don't know what's happened to him. So the next time you see him, it's in shadows, it's in the background type thing. And I think I'm actually reversing something because the flashback happens after his quote unquote first appearance. When he actually makes his appearance, it's Ultron 5. Because Ultron was one of those guys who always had to have a number after his name because he's a robot, and all robots have numbers as part of their names. That's the 60s convention, just
naturally.
It was.
Yeah.
The reason why he's Ultron 5 is that he's already upgraded 5 times since he escaped from Avengers Mansion. And he has the standard humanoid shape that pretty much remained unchanged till now, for the most part. Of all the different characters, I mean, the most gross change I've seen to the character and how he looks was going from the trash can to his modern version to what we see in Avengers. Because the Avengers movie is taking some liberties in how he looks.
Understandable.
Yes and no, because one of the things I always liked about Ultron in the comic books is that his eyes are just pits of fire. There is no humanity there. By actually giving him eyeballs, that actually takes away from the menace, in my opinion. But that's just me. Other people say by humanizing him, that makes him look more, human, thus, ergo, what is the most dangerous animal, etc., etc. So, anyhow, so he shows up as Ultron 5. Now, the thing is Ultron has been, with only one exception I can think of, he's exclusively an Avengers villain. He has some serious Oedipal problems. The reason why he always goes after the Avengers is because of Pym, and only because of Henry Pym. Although he did not push Hank Pym to strike his wife, set up the Masters of Evil, and, get into all kinds of trouble there, but still. But no, Ultron was always exclusively an Avengers villain up until Acts of Vengeance, which came out in, 93. So you're looking at a good solid 20 years of every time you see Ultron, Ultron 5, Ultron 6, Ultron 7, on up the line, because every time he gets destroyed and rebuilds himself, he adds a number. Anyway, he's exclusively an Avengers villain. Which as soon as I saw they were doing the Avengers Initiative, I'm like, I wonder when we're going to get to Ultron. Because they can't use Doom, they can't use Galactus, they can't use all these other, pretty cool villains. They got Ultron, though, on the other hand. Because whereas...
And they used him.
Yes, they did. Whereas a lot of other villains seem to have play in other books, Ultron, he's always shown up against the Avengers. And never against anybody solo, again, with the one exception that I can think of.
What's that one exception?
Acts of Vengeance in the 90s, Loki gets the grand idea of, the heroes are always kicking our butts. And the thing is that probably the reason why is because we keep going after the same heroes. So everybody take a look to the left and fight that guy instead. So you end up with the Mandarin fighting the X-Men, and that's actually where Psylocke becomes Asian. You end up with, I can't remember all the different permutations. Long and the short of it, though, Ultron ends up fighting against Daredevil and two of the Inhumans.
Okay.
And you'd think, well, they're hosed. But the thing is that it was Ultron 12, I think, at this point, and he's got the personalities of 4 other Ultrons in his head. So he's already damaged himself because he thinks if he tears himself apart, then he can merge the personality or something. The thing is that he's doing this in Hell's Kitchen. And Daredevil doesn't like that. Daredevil has sonar sense, and Ultron is made out of adamantium, which is another point I'm going to get to in a second, too. For whatever reason, he's palling around with Karnak and Gorgon of the Inhumans at the time, so Karnak is able to tell where the weakest point on something is. Gorgon can actually take a hit and take a lot of punishment because he's kind of the strong man of the Inhumans. But it is in fact Daredevil who manages to take him out. So other than that, again, exclusively Avengers.
Oh yeah, you're going to go into the adamantium thing because
obviously the Marvel can't use it.
The Marvel movies can't use adamantium because that's given to the Fox. Without doing any spoilers yet, we'll do spoilers later on. Mm-hmm. But basically, Fox has rights to adamantium. It's just so strange they have rights over a fake metal.
I know, right?
And then MCU has the vibranium, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. So, and MCU technically has Uru as well, but again, that's another discussion for another time.
Different metal.
That's what Thor's hammer is made from.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, of course.
Exactly. So, of course, they got to make up yet another metal for it. Anyway. Yes. So, there we were. Okay, as to the adamantium thing, yes, adamantium actually predates Wolverine, if I remember correctly, as just, the impregnable metal, the unbendable, unbreakable metal of the Marvel Universe. Ultron, of course, who does not want to die because he is a singular creature, well, he ends up, making himself out of adamantium because can't be destroyed. Where he keeps getting the adamantium from, I have no clue, however, because it's supposed to be a really, really, really rare metal, I'm presuming, in the Marvel Universe.
He just had some in a closet. Don't worry about it.
I don't know. Which, actually, another thought that just ran through my head when you talk about mutants and Ultron. There is one other case in which Ultron has been a bad guy, not for the Avengers. And that's been relatively recently, as I meander through the Marvel Universe here. Sorry, guys.
And who was that against?
That was actually against the nascent modern-day Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
Because with the original premise of how they got to the modern Guardians of the Galaxy, there was a series of books called Annihilation, where basically Marvel took all these old C and D list science characters or space characters, I should say. Basically took them, threw them up against a wall, and said, "Let's see what sticks." And initially, it was Annihilus had come through from the negative zone because, as a result of the Civil War, Reed Richards built a prison in the negative zone. The negative zone is finite space, however, and every time positive material comes in there, the negative zone shrinks. That makes sense?
Sure.
Anyhow.
Why not? Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So Annihilus decides to invade our reality because, well, if his reality is going to be destroyed, screw you pink little things over here. I'm taking over. Mm-hmm. So he comes through with the first Annihilation Wave, and it unites all these crazy space heroes and characters that Marvel hasn't used literally in decades in some cases. And they build up, some steam behind a couple of them. Star-Lord had not been used in 25 years. He pops up in Annihilation, and people are like, hey, who's this guy? Anyway, so that was the first Annihilation Wave. The second Annihilation Wave comes through when the Technovire, I can't remember the race's name. You remember Warlock from the New Mutants? The Techno... Sure. Oh, God, what's he called? That's going to drive me nuts now. Long and the short of it, he is in fact a living machine, as is his entire race. And basically, the only way I can describe it is that they're all shapeshifters as well, in as much as that their bodies are made up of colonies of nanites, I guess is the best way to try to explain it to somebody who's never read it.
Like the Borg.
Sort of, yes.
Like Terminator 2. Go on.
So, anyhow, only not as shiny. Anyways. So, anyhow, the second Annihilation Wave comes through, and it's all this mechanical stuff, and people trying to figure out what the hell's happening here. Because after this is when the modern Guardians do get founded. That's when Star-Lord's like, okay, if these big things are going to be happening out here in space, we have to have somebody to mitigate this and have a united front, as opposed to everybody kind of going pell-mell against it, and we all getting wiped out in the meantime. Now the thing is that what happened from there is that there was an Avengers story in the early 2000s, written by Mark Waid and George Perez, where the Avengers finally realized, okay, we've really had enough of you. We don't know if we can destroy you at this point, so we're just going to get you the hell off of Earth. And they kind of just tossed him into portal into space. Or something like that. Unfortunately,
Ultron?
Yes. Unfortunately, I do not remember the full details on that. There's going to be some nerd out there going, that's not what happened. And they're probably right.
And the best part is they actually sound like that.
Well, I mean,
Hey, come on, guys. Really?
So, yeah. Anyhow, not everybody can have the smooth, velvety voice that I have, I guess. Anyway, so long and the short of it is Ultron ended up in deep space. He takes over Warlock's people, and he's heading back to Earth. And Ultron is the reason why the modern Guardians of the Galaxy came together.
Okay.
Yeah. So they
could, in theory, utilize that in future films. Like he could still be around and make a new body for himself or something.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if they wanted to bring him back for anything, they absolutely could, because the whole point of it is he's a program. As long as he can continue downloading himself somewhere.
And they just have to add a number to the end and they're good.
Exactly.
Ultron 2.
Yep. All right. So, anyhow. I presume, obviously, with the introduction of vibranium from the first Captain America film, that's all the vibranium we got right there in your shield. Okay, I see an awful lot of Ultrons running around in the movie. I'm pretty positive there's more vibranium in the universe. So, which will bring us to Black Panther, which I'm totally okay with, because I kind of like that character.
Now, does vibranium exist in the comics, or is that something they made up because they couldn't use adamantium?
No, vibranium exists in the comics, because in the comic book universe, Captain America's shield is the single most indestructible thing in the world, because it is a vibranium and adamantium alloy.
Made of the two of them together.
Correct. Wolverine's claws cannot cut through it. Ultron cannot punch through it. Thor's hammer cannot dent it. It is the single most... I mean, with the Guardians of the Galaxy from the 31st century, the technically original Guardians of the Galaxy, the leader of that team, Major Victory, has Captain America's shield.
Oh, gee. Major Victory.
Nice. Yes. He's a mutant from the 20th century who was an astronaut who got stranded in space Anyway, he's in the 31st century. He fights against the Badoon, and he has Captain America's shield. And he's a telekinetic, so he can actually use it better than Cap can.
Of course.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you can control how it moves with your mind, but anyway.
But what about, is there any weapon that we know about that's just made of vibranium in the comics?
Just made of vibranium? Yes, as a matter of fact, there is a Ulysses Claw, who is a villain, who is in Avengers Age of Ultron. He ends up grafting a sonic weapon to his arm that is made out of vibranium, which allows him to control and manipulate sound.
All right. Well, we saw some stuff in the movie about that, so there you go.
But yeah, in a nutshell, Ultron crazy evil AI, Hank Pym, his daddy, serious daddy issues, which is why he keeps going after the Avengers. As far as I can recall, and somebody can obviously fact check me on this, the only times he's not fought the Avengers was one time when Doctor Doom manipulated him to do that. It was all Doctor Doom and Loki, because that's just what they do. And the formation of the Guardians of the Galaxy 21st century style. So, makes perfect sense for him to be in the Avengers film. The only incongruities are no adamantium and no Hank Pym.
So, quick question for you, because this is something I've seen as a theme through many Marvel villains, is eventually at some point they go good for some very weird reason. Has Ultron ever gone good for some very weird reason?
Not that I recall.
Okay.
He's maliciously... there are lawful aspects to him, but to use D&D parlance, he's neutral evil. He's all about himself. There is a law that he wishes to impose upon everything, which is, kill all organic life. When I first heard Bender say kill all humans in Futurama, my first thought was Ultron. Because it's just, his modus operandi is fairly simple. Kill all humans, starting with Hank Pym. And destroy everything that Hank Pym ever built. Ergo, the Avengers have got to go.
I thought it was odd that the movies decided not to use Hank Pym since they're using him in their very next movie. Like, they could have connected him through that, and then it would have made Ant-Man more successful.
Yeah, or it could have been the tag on the end of the film, or anything.
Something. All they needed was a simple throwback of, this was a program this guy Pym came up with. That's all they would have needed. And every fanboy who owns Avengers number 55 would have squealed. People who read the comics on a more religious level, shall we say, would have loved the throwback to it. This is one of the few minor quibbles that you hear about it. Is, man, I really wish they had done that. I do, on the other hand, from an outsider perspective, understand why they did it. Is not to clutter up the universe. They've already established Tony being the tech guy. Why introduce another person into it when we know that Tony is the tech guy who deals with armor, who deals with, robotics?
Right, and we already have the secondary tech guy also in Bruce Banner.
Yes.
Which they also introduced and established.
And it does make sense as far as the comics you're saying. It didn't really make a lot of sense why Hank Pym, who's involved in the science of atoms and making things bigger and smaller, suddenly works on AI. So I think you're right. They're almost cleaning up their own mess by making it this way. Kind
of so. My only potential quibble on that is that I despise a certain amount of retroactive continuity, and that, all this comic stuff that is successful, that where you're making all this money off this movie from, be respectful to the source material. As an aside on that, my least favorite moment of pretty much any comic book film actually comes from Tim Burton's Batman, when he established that it was the Joker who killed off Bruce's parents, all to make it a tidy story. And it's like, that didn't happen, though. I mean, what? No, don't do this thing. But it's pretty much all producers, in my opinion, meddling with the film of, what would Joe Sixpack want to see? And focus groups that talk to people who have never picked up a comic book in their lives.
Hey, I'm Joe Sixpack. Thank you very much.
But does it make sense for have Joker to be the one who killed Bruce's parents?
If I drink enough.
Well, there you go.
If I drink enough. I think Hank Pym and everything else makes sense if you drink enough. That's
true. That is true.
But then I'll be in the negative zone by the end of the night.
Exactly. So. Be banished there, and then a nihilist gets all pissed off, and it just ends badly.
Hey, I know fans are happy about that the new Fantastic Four movie is going back to the negative zone instead of space rays.
Well, you see, now, this is another one of the tweaks that I'm okay with. The Fantastic Four, when it first came out, 1961, the concept of a person going into space was still incredibly new. We're still 8 years out from the moon. In 1961 was when Gagarin went into space. So the concept of a whole group of people going into space, doing fantastic things, no pun intended, and coming back with superpowers was a big deal. That was something that like 3 people in the world at that point had ever done. Mm-hmm. So changing it to a modern version where they're going to another dimension, I can live with that. I honestly can, because while it is incredibly dangerous, with enough money, any one of the 3 of us could go to space.
It's true at this point.
So so I can understand them updating the level of what they're doing with that. So so I get that. But on the other hand, I'm really kind of upset with the fact that Marvel is ending the Fantastic Four, basically trying to put a squeeze on the studios to either give up the rights or whatever. Because again, it's kind of disrespectful to the source material. You're talking about.
Yeah, do you hear about that, Steve? Where basically Marvel is basically playing down the X-Men and Fantastic Four so that people see less of those movies because they can't get merchandising rights and everything like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, as mentioned, comics aren't exactly doing great right now when it comes in terms of sales, despite the fact of the way the movies are doing. Because, well, it's still the common person's dollar that is pushing the movies. Nerds are benefiting from it. And, but the thing is that most of the people who are going to see these movies may have picked up comics whenever, they were a teenager or something, maybe, or they have a friend who does it. But the number of people who collect comics who are seeing the movies are still very much a small minority of the people who are giving money to the movies.
True.
Merchandise, on the other hand, holy cow, are we giving a lot of merchandise. But,
and I saw somewhere it's like, well, the movie will make, close to $1 billion,
right,
if not more, whereas the whole history of comics barely made that much, so it's like
exactly.
It's kind of a bad comparison. So
right, so
that's where their loyalties lie.
Yeah, so hence we end up with certain changes that are just awful and that actually piss off the fans, and then you get some changes that okay, you deal with a little bit of change, and sometimes it actually makes more sense. Not often, but sometimes. Hence why I'm okay with the negative zone origin of the Fantastic Four.
So a little bit back to Ultron here, whereas in the movie, not giving anything away to anybody out there, but basically his character was, his whole movie was fairly comical, but even more than the first one, I would think, without giving away any spoilers. But his character was kind of, intimidating at times, but he was pretty funny a lot of the time too.
Yeah.
So is that pretty consistent with the comics and his character in general, or is he always just completely serious, evil villain?
He's fairly serious, but oh Lord, how to put this? He generally doesn't do quips. At the same time, he does have a complete superiority complex. It's not that he doesn't have emotions; he just sees no need for them. So he may throw out zingers and stuff like that, but I don't think he'd do it in such a way of the James Spader school of acting, because James Spader, I really love the man's work. At the same time, if he turned it up just one notch, he turns into William Shatner. So the man can chew up scenery. So you don't hire somebody like James Spader and not allow him to do that to an extent.
And also it's like Joss Whedon writing and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Because you don't want to have a completely dry, blah, character. You just don't want that as a villain, because then it's not going to engage the audience. So I totally understand them doing any sort of change to the character in as much as that, throw out the villainous quips. And because also, just inspired me on something. They may be trying to use it as a way to make him Dr. Doom, even though they can't use Dr. Doom. Because Doom is going to monologue the entire time that he's, throwing things at you and blasting at you and stuff like that. So this could be their way of, using Doom, but without using Doom.
And also, I'd say going with Guardians of the Galaxy, where Ronan the Accuser, at least in the film, was very serious, I'm the villain 2D character. And I think people were a little upset about that, but it was okay because the rest of the movie was so great and the other characters were funny and stuff and entertaining. But so I think they went to change that up with this one because he wasn't drawl and boring in 2D. He was very multi-layered, kind of interesting, funny character. But you still think he's evil at the same time. Right.
You can't mistake it for him being evil in this because, well, the whole want to kill all humans.
Exactly.
There's really no way you can say that and not be evil. So, but and again, like you said, with between Joss Whedon's writing and, in my opinion, probably the reason that they can't use Dr. Doom, then bam. Because that's another one of the shames of the studio splits on things, is that they can't use Dr. Doom, and he is the best villain of the Marvel Universe.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Dr. Doom has, in fact, taken over the world before. He gave it up at one point because the bureaucracy was way too tedious. So
that'd do it for me too.
Well, exactly. I mean, who wants to do paperwork? It's much more fun to blast at people and curse Richard's name and things like that. So.
What about Galactus? Can he eat planets and stuff?
He absolutely can. And to be honest, and there was a moment in Guardians of the Galaxy, there's a scene where you look at a character and you're like, that should be Galactus, but they can't use Galactus because he's over with the Fantastic Four universe.
Yep.
So that's the real true tragedy of a lot of this, is that with the split of the characters and whatnot, can't use Galactus for Guardians, can't use Doom for, well, anything except Fantastic Four. So they are and they aren't limited in characters when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a result, because I doubt very seriously we'll ever see like the Masters of Evil or anything, or a group of characters that would be the Masters of Evil, but we can't call them that because of the fact of Masters of Evil kind of sounds a little goofy.
So what is, in your opinion, for the Marvels of the universe, for Guardians, all that, what is the best villain we can hope for at this point?
In the future?
Or period? Obviously, they're pushing Thanos really hard. Which is great for Marvel, but it's a shame for comic book movies overall, because Darkseid is a far better Thanos than Thanos will ever be. And Thanos is literally just a ripoff of Darkseid. And that's kind of Darkseid, the DC villain, one of the new gods. And for the listeners, in case they didn't know. Anyway, Thanos is literally a ripoff of Darkseid. And so the fact that Thanos is getting much more and current airtime, as soon as DC pops up Darkseid, everybody's going to go, well, he's just a ripoff of Thanos. And it's like, no, that's so backwards. But anyway.
I remember Darkseid from like cartoons and some video games I played when I was a kid. So yeah, I know vaguely who that is, and that he was, and looking it up later is how similar the two of them are. Very similar.
Oh yeah. I mean, Jim Starlin was trying to do something to get back at DC when he had joined Marvel Comics in the 70s, and he started to rip off certain characters, and they're like, dude, if you're going to rip somebody off, rip off one of the big ones. So he ripped off Darkseid and made Thanos, and Thanos flew around in the Thanos copter, and it was hysterical. But anyway, I kid you not, his first appearance in Iron Man, which I think I also have somewhere. Anyway, he's flying a helicopter. It's orange, and on the tail of it, it says Thanos copter.
Oh God!
I want the Thanos copter in the Marvel. Anyway. But yeah, he's obviously the big bad that they're pushing for, and I don't blame them, because the Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War, Infinity Crisis, Infinity money making scheme was
to
the
take
big
infinite amounts of my hard-earned money. Yeah,
exactly.
Go on.
That was pretty much the big Marvel crossover of the early 90s. So I don't blame them for using Thanos in any way, shape, or form. It opens up to possible use of the Eternals and other certain cosmic things that they do have access to without it being anything that's tied to Fantastic Four or even X-Men.
So what do you think Marvel's next move is, as far as moving forward?
Like after Thanos, I guess?
Yeah, or do you think they're going to eventually combine the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers? Are they going to cross paths?
My thoughts on it are, is once we get on the other side of this particular phase where they introduce Ant-Man, they introduce Doctor Strange, they get the Defenders up and running on television, they're going to do the Infinity War. They're doing it in 2 films. It's the end of the Marvel Phase 3, I think, and frankly, probably the end of this arc of Marvel films, because some of the actors are getting too old for the characters at this once it's all going to be done. Some of them don't want to go on playing the characters, so they're either going to have to recast or reboot. Either of which I'm kind of okay with. But the last 2 films are the Infinity War, so they're aiming right at it. And it's going to be, it has the potential to be way too busy. So what I'm figuring is going to happen is the first movie is going to be all the characters that are still in the spotlight when Thanos comes to do whatever he's going to do, which is in the comics, it's killing half of the universe because he has all the Infinity Stones. And then who's left is going to have to fight against him, and then a cavalry comes in the second movie. It could get could get too busy if they're not careful, because how do you convince A-list actors to spend 10 minutes in a movie?
That's true.
Right, but at the same time, I think that could be a very big opportunity for them to kill off people that maybe don't have renewing contracts.
Yep.
You have a point there. At the same time, if they play Civil War the way that it played out in the comic books, then we're not going to have Cap for these films. And I
can do it. Everyone can do without Captain America.
Oh, come on!
People
now.
love Captain America.
Right. But here's the thing: he always played the moral center of the team in the comics and the movies and everything. And he hasn't. They make spoilers. They make fun of it. Of him being the moral center of the team in this most recent film, Age of Ultron. It's been played out. They're done with it. They're not even going to try it.
And there might go to the comics where apparently Falcon takes up the reins to be Captain America, right?
Yeah, in the comics right now, Thor is a woman, Falcon has taken over his cap, and this is after Bucky had taken over his cap, I might add. They've changed a couple things, but that's really just an attention grab and money grab. And hey, people that have seen the movies maybe have not have read the comics are checking out the comics now, so let's do something new and radical. Thor will be back to being Thor in another year. Steve Rogers will be back in another year. As to killing off the only lawful good guy, I really, really despise how lawful good characters are pitted off or written as being weaklings for the fact that they stick to morals and are good guys. It really bugs me that.
Do you play the lawful good paladin in D&D?
I often did, yes. But the thing is that you can in fact do that. You can dispense low justice and be a badass and actually follow what is good and right.
True.
And frankly, it bugs me that character in the last 30 years or so in movies has been turned into a punching bag.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It's not just these films. I feel like you're defining an entire... The lawful good has always been the one that takes the hit.
But
in plays that go back 400, 500 years, in cinema that goes back 100, this isn't a new thing.
You are correct, but the making fun of that type of character as what the general populace does kind of is, I mean, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington notwithstanding, it's relatively modern invention.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of like what you're talking about, Steve, kind of like it usually is the lawful good guy dies in order to inspire the morally ambiguous person to then become the lawful good person.
Right, the neutral good. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I've seen that a lot, but... Yeah, I mean, I know that Chris Evans does not want to play that for very much longer. I think they almost didn't get him through all the movies that they're doing now.
I hope he goes back to being the Human Torch. That's just me.
Frankly, he's too old for that now, though.
That's true. That's true.
But anywho, but yeah, I understand the point of the trope of the moral compass dying and inspiring the others. At the same time, it doesn't have to be that way. And frankly, if you got somebody clever like Joss Whedon writing, I'd like to think that he could actually do something with that character to make it where it is he's making a big point and a big sacrifice, but doesn't necessarily have to A, be a punching bag, or B, having to be a martyr.
And unfortunately, he's out for the Infinity War movies, so that's somebody else for that.
No, that's not necessarily true. He's already said he's postponing his time off because he wanted to retire and direct, which I think was code for I don't want to necessarily do this character forever. And
plus, I'm pretty sure Chris Evans owes.
Oh no, I was talking about Joss Whedon. Sorry,
Joss Whedon. No, my bad.
Yeah, he's not doing the Infinity War movies.
Correct. He's the Avengers 2 is it for him as far as we know.
Yeah.
And there is rumor.
Chris Evans, yeah, I think he's still going to do those.
Probably. I think he's signed on for 2 more films, as far as I understand.
Oh, okay.
I guess technically Infinity War might be one film, maybe.
I guess, because I know they're filming him at the same time, because, well, he's got to be in Civil War.
Yeah.
Wait. I think I just figured out what's going to... If he's only there for 2 movies, I know... I know what's going to happen. Okay, well, at least I have this is my theory on what's going to happen if Chris Evans is only signed for 2 more movies, which, we're all on the internet. We could probably unravel this right now. But if he's only there for 2 more movies, he dies at the end of Civil War, and at the beginning or somewhere in the middle of Infinity War Part 2, through use of the Infinity Stones, somebody brings him back to life, because they have to have the leader.
That's possible. So yeah. Kind of neat. I'd be okay with that.
So, but
they brought him back.
Yeah, true. But anyhow, so yeah. As to the future of the Marvel films, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of this particular phase, if you will, once they get past Infinity War, by then I have a hard time seeing, because already they made the deal with Sony, Fox. Yeah, Fox has the X-Men. Sorry. Sony having Spider-Man. They've already made the deal to have a share with that character, at least through the Avengers stuff. And then I wouldn't be surprised if Fox doesn't wake up and do something similar with Fantastic Four at the very least. If not, give up rights to the characters in toto just for the sake of if this next Fantastic Four film does poorly.
True.
My hope for the next part of it is that they can actually reunite the different cinematic universes to some extent, because I don't think Fox is going to give up the mutants for a very long time. They're way too lucrative. and they have no reason to give them up. Whereas Sony, well, they kind of fumbled a little bit with Spider-Man, and they still haven't got. Crap, I'm still mixing it up. Nope, because Fox. Let's try that again. Fox has Fantastic Four and X-Men. I could see them giving up Fantastic Four based on the fact of, well, we already got the X-Men and they're doing just fine.
Apparently, they're making an X-Men TV show. Apparently, is what I hear is happening.
Oh boy.
Everyone's trying to get into the TV world now.
Yeah,
now
that's
that
true.
someone has finally done it successfully,
right?
Everyone's storming in.
That's true. That's like one of the few areas where DC's, I'm not going to say firing on all cylinders, but they're doing a pretty good job.
They got a lot of them out there, but they're not cohesive, but there's a lot of them doing pretty well.
Yeah. And I am in a kind of a minority amongst fans in as much as that I'm not really a huge fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It plods along too often. They use it too often as simply a, hey, guess what? One of our movies is now out on DVD and Blu-ray, so we're going to do a crossover thing so we can promote it. Yeah.
Pretty much. I still enjoy them, but the DC shows do have a little more substance so far, I think.
Yeah, which surprised me, given that they're basically on, the 90210 channel.
Yeah, CW for the win.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's very pretty on those shows, no doubt about that. And, well, we can do another podcast about that. But, DC's actually hitting on most all cylinders. The only one that's faltered, really, has been Constantine.
Well, on that note, a whole other podcast, I do have to say we probably have to bring this to a close. But we'd have you back again for other comic subjects, absolutely. And Ant-Man comes out pretty soon, so maybe we can talk about that later on.
Sounds like a plan.
That'd be great. But thanks for coming, Geoff. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
Oh,
Geoff.
That's all good.
Geoff.
Thank you both very much.
Joffy, baby.
Hey, there we go. So anyhow, yes, I appreciate it very much, guys, and hope to do this again in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks for informing us and schooling us in the ways of Ultron and many other things.
Because we don't know anything.
Anytime, guys.
Well, that was a hell of an interview with
Sure
Geoff.
was.
Thanks again for schooling us and bringing more information from the nerd community to those of us who claim to be nerds. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's definitely our blind spot, the area of comics. So
most things are our blind spot. Let's be honest.
But we learn a lot through osmosis and hearing about it through TV shows and other people and blogs and stuff. So
or I hear about it online and then I'm forced to look up the Wikipedia article and then I end up reading 6 other Wikipedia articles linked from that Wikipedia article.
Oh God, yes. I go down the Wikipedia hole quite a bit.
Holy crap.
That 9DB, it's like you jump on one actor and you go down 30 movies later.
And then suddenly you're at Kevin Bacon every damn time.
How? I don't understand.
Every damn time.
So now we're going to jump into the area of trailer reviews.
Trailer reviews.
Here at Play on Nerds, we have developed an interesting rating system to bring to you our ideas on the trailers we're about to review. At the low end of the scale, we have Burn It, where we think you should find every copy you can get your hands on and throw it into a barrel fire.
Kill it with fire. And our next step is Drunk Watch, which means that, yeah, I'd watch this movie. It'd be entertaining if I was under the influence of some kind of substance of some kind. But if I was sober, probably not going to check this thing out.
Nope, not going to see it. Next, we've got We'll See, which is maybe we just don't know enough about this movie to tell what the hell it's going to be.
Could be good, could be bad, not sure. And our next category would be Get the Couch Ready, which means I'm definitely going to check this movie out at home. Wouldn't necessarily pay the big bucks to see it in theaters, but I'm definitely going to watch it at home, so get that couch ready.
After that, we have Take a Look, where we are recommending for you, our viewers and listeners, to check out this movie and check out the trailer and tell us what you think about it. We wanted to see what you guys think.
It looks pretty good, but we're not quite sure yet.
Yeah, take a look. Yeah. Let us know.
And for our final and best category, we have Shut Up and Take My Money.
Shut up and take my money.
This looks so awesome, we're gonna see it.
That's where we cannot wait to give Hollywood bigwigs all of the money that we have earned at work to go see a film for $47. We're so excited, we just have to go see it. We don't have a choice.
And that is our A Play on Nerds official copyrighted trademark system for rating our movie trailers.
So which movie did you want to talk about first?
So I'm going to go ahead and start with the one that I'm the most skeptical about.
And what's this one about?
And that's The Visit.
Oh, yes.
M. Night Shyamalan's new film. You all remember M. Night Shyamalan?
You said Shyamalan.
Shyamalan. M. Night
There's an N at
Shyamalan.
the end of his name, so at least Shyamalan.
You know what? When he starts making good films again, I'll start pronouncing his name correctly.
Oh,
How
I
about
can't remember
that?
who said this, but someone said that when you say his name wrong, you're being racist. I'm like, that's not... It's like, it's not my fault. I can't pronounce his name.
People have been mispronouncing my last name since forever, and it's 6 letters long. I'm not that worried about it. Internet.
We both have man in those names, Jarman and Bowman, and they both pronounce both those names wrong. So
Bowman, just all the time. Doesn't
German,
matter.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Anyways,
so The Visit, which is about 2 kids who are taken away from their technological fun with. It looks like a lot of the film ends up happening through Skype and FaceTime and that sort of thing, and are sent to their grandparents for a summer vacation. But something's very wrong with their grandparents. And it looks kind of creepy and strange, and their grandmother is naked in the hallway, and I don't know what to make of this, but I think it's going to be terrible.
and it's like half found footage, half not, I think, or something. I couldn't really tell.
Yeah, half of it is like them filming off of their phones, and then they go to real, actual film shots. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't. It's like The Happening all over again, which is kind of funny because it lists from the director who brought you The Sixth Sense and Signs and The Village, and just leaves off The Happening. It doesn't mention
The Happening and Lady in the Water.
I didn't mention that one either.
And The Devil and
well, he just produced the
Devil. Airbender one.
He only produced Airbender and The Devil. Actually, he might have directed.
He wrote Airbender.
That's right. I think he did do Airbender, but The Devil he just produced.
All right.
But the Devil wasn't that bad. so
yeah, we'll forget about those awful films he did. But I don't... My fear with this is that with how much they're showing in the trailer, that there's no way it's the grandparents.
They're not the villains or something?
It can't be. It's too obvious. Yeah, it's got to be... I don't know. Fuck it. It's going to be terrible.
They're being controlled by someone else or something.
Right, but it's not going to be what we're expecting because they've already shown too much.
And in the trailer, at one point, the grandmother does ask the girl to get into the oven to help clean it. And it's like a direct Hansel and Gretel kind of reference there. So that was kind of weird.
But I don't know what you people think of it, but I think it's going to be awful.
So is that a burn it for you?
I'm not sure if there's a level beyond burn it, if we ever define that, but like double burn it.
Maybe send it to the negative zone.
Like burn every copy you can in a barrel fire, and then find people that saw the movie and burn them too, so that they can never talk about it to their grandkids. It's going to be bad. That's my vote.
So my vote is that I saw The Happening with Mark Wahlberg.
What? No.
It was just the most strange. I was so weirded out by that movie because I was like, is this a joke? Like, M. Night Shyamalan, I literally did like everything he did until then. I was okay with The Village. I was okay with Lady in the Water for what they were.
I really liked Lady in the Water.
Yeah, and then The Happening happened, and I was like, is he joking? Like, there's the lines they're saying some poorly, and they're like...
What? No.
It's like they think this whole movie's funny. So I was like, I was so confused, but I'll never forget that movie because it was so weird and bad. I was just so...
What I took away from The Happening was, did I really just listen to a whole monologue about how some guy likes hot dogs?
Probably.
Did that really just occur?
So if it's anything like The Happening, I'm going to drunk watch this movie. That's my vote, drunk watch.
I'll have to be blackout drunk, so I don't remember it.
To be sleeping, basically.
All right, The Visit, we don't expect much from you. Please exceed our expectations.
There you go. And jumping up in the area expectations, up the ladder here, we'll go to Area 51, which is looks to be a movie about 3 20-somethings, as typical horror-type movies are. They are all somewhat interested or connected to the events of 1947 with Roswell and Area 51 in the way that they're interested, and one of them might have been abducted. So they want to figure out a way to get into Area 51 to find out what's really there. And they actually prepare pretty well for it. They get suits that looks like they takes them off thermal scans. So they can't
mask body heat and
they take a
ammonia
pill
things.
Yeah, to block their ammonia. I don't know, whatever. But so they get into the base, stuff commences. It's a found footage movie because they're filming the whole thing as it's happening. And I think it's right up my alley because I love aliens and all that stuff. It looks like fun for that regard. But it could have the same problem as Paranormal Activity, where like they gave away all the best parts in the trailer and the rest of it's just like leading up to those parts. The whole movie is probably just like lead up. But who knows? But
the question becomes, they obviously find something. There's no question about that. Now the question becomes, is it actually aliens?
Yes, that's true.
But with the amount of paranormal kind of technology they showed in the preview, it kind of has to be aliens, right?
Yeah, and there were some good special effects in the trailer, so I'm pleased with that part at least.
Yeah, the anti-gravity stuff and that weird rippling metal stuff.
Yeah. So I gave it a get the couch ready because it's an alien thing. I have to watch it, but I'm not going to go to the theater to see it. So that's my thing.
This is one of those other films that I fear that there has to be more to it because they've already given away too much.
Agreed.
Which I think is a problem with most trailers nowadays.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Or that the
I feel
movie
so
sucks.
old when I say shit like that, but man.
But no, it could be
true.
a thing of the movies just aren't as good, so there's less good things to show, so they have to show it all in the trailer.
Well, that and I'm going to say this. Americans' patience is so thin that you kind of have to show a ton or else people won't go see the film.
Almost makes trailers more important.
Yeah, in some ways.
Because there's way too many movies being made.
Like, if you look at the trailer for Jaws from back in the day, it's just a lot of, like, water shots and ominous music. Nothing is actually shown.
Yep. That wouldn't fly these days.
No, it wouldn't. People would want to see the shark. They want to see blood in the water. They want to see a boat being tipped over and then a close-up of a woman screaming and then a bikini shot for some reason.
And lots of butts.
That's what Americans, butts everywhere. That's what the people want.
It's like someone trying to argue that Fast and the Furious has good female representation. I'm like, are you kidding me? Those movies just have butts everywhere. Female butts in the camera.
Hey, Michelle Rodriguez's ass looks hot in those films. In with that case, yes. Great.
I mean, Michelle Rodriguez is enough tough woman for any movie because she's incredibly intense and independent for sure.
I feel like if I used a pickup line on her, she would pull a switchblade. That's
much.
all I'm going to say.
And she'd be really drunk because she's been arrested like for 4 DUIs.
We're sorry, Michelle Rodriguez. I'm sure you're a real sweet drunk girl.
Yes. So what'd you give that one then?
Oh, God, I don't even think about it. I'll give it a get the couch ready. If it showed up on Netflix, I would sit and watch it.
All right, cool. I'd watch it with you.
As long as it's not a ghost movie, I'm okay.
Maybe they turn out to be ghosts in the end. That could be it.
Alien ghosts? Oh my God. I would burn my television.
That's what Scientology is based off of, the ghosts of aliens.
That's true. And which brings me back to my point. Ghosts aren't real.
That's right, Scientologists.
All right, so now moving on to our third film, the most promising looking of any of them, which is Spectre, the new installment from James Bond, which the trailer is cool and all, but I don't know anything about the film from it. Really.
True.
We're to understand that there is a counterintelligence agency which is trained like James Bond, but for terroristic reasons. They're equally as good at their job and equally as trained and have as much tech, but their job is to cause chaos as opposed to whatever James Bond does.
You must have saw a different trailer than I did, because mine didn't show me any of that.
Oh, yeah. In mine, there was a whole voiceover about how they're trained just as well, and they're trained just like they are, but for evil purposes, that sort of thing.
Huh. Interesting.
Well,
mine was much shorter, I feel like.
But yeah, we don't know a whole lot about the film, but I'm sure it'll be another Daniel Craig action film with at least one good car chase, one good parkour chase on foot kind of scene for some reason.
Maybe a boat chase. Don't forget those.
Yes. And one time where he has to drink and then shoot someone. Those seem to be the tenets of all the good Daniel Craig James Bond films. And I expect that to be the same here.
One thing I'm hopeful about is I see a lot of shots of Monica Bellucci in this movie, which I think she's gorgeous, first of all, as an actress, but also that she's around the same age as Daniel Craig for once. So this could be like the first ever Bond film where the Bond girl is the same age as Bond.
I'm looking up Monica Bellucci.
She's been in a lot of movies. You'll recognize her. I think she was in Mulholland Drive, Irreversible.
Oh, yeah. I'd pee in her butt.
You'd pee in her butt.
That's just one of those phrases we toss around the office every now and then.
Oh, Jesus. But she's born 1964. Daniel Craig, born in 1968.
I was going to say, he's got to be younger.
She's 4 years younger or older than him, yeah. So I think that'd be awesome. They could finally do that. That would be kind of cool because he doesn't need to be dating somebody who's 20 and he's like 40 years her senior or something.
He needs someone who's aged like a fine red wine.
Yes, and
that's Monica Bellucci.
And she's French. Anyways, so I also love that Christoph Waltz is in this movie playing the big villain because I love Christoph Waltz in anything so far he's done. So
I have a hard time taking Christoph Waltz seriously
because he's always like half smiling through his lines.
Right, he's always so lighthearted. Now, mind you, in some ways that if he pulls it off, that may make him a more intimidating villain as it did in Inglourious Bastards.
Exactly, he's so just casual about his evilness that it just makes.
But that being said, I hate Inglourious Bastards for a whole different set of reasons.
Really? I love that movie.
So, here's my take on Inglourious Bastards.
Okay.
If I told you were going to see a movie called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, what would you expect to see a lot of in that movie?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
If I tell you you're going to go see a movie called Inglourious Bastards, and I show a group of Jewish soldiers and all the previews, and then you went and they were only in 18 minutes of the film, would you be upset?
That would be a little weird.
That was Inglourious Bastards.
See, that didn't bother me at all. I like the rest of what they showed. I don't want to see more Brad Pitt. I don't like him that much.
I wanted to see a bunch of Jewish soldiers kicking ass and taking names, and instead I got a French love story. That was bullshit.
And I guess they did show a lot more of the Nazis than they did of the actual people fighting the Nazis.
Yeah, exactly. It just bugged. If they had titled it and marketed it differently, I wouldn't have had as many issues with it. But I feel like I was tricked into going to see that film.
But that long scene of him walking into that house of the Frenchman who's hiding the
the milk scene,
beautiful, yeah. And then the scene of playing cards in the bar, and they're finding out that he's actually not a German soldier; he's a British operative with Michael Fassbender. I think that was great.
Yeah. No, I mean, once again, it wasn't a bad film. It was just the way that it was presented to the world was not what I got, and that pissed me off to a point where I couldn't forgive the film. It's
funny that you mentioned Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because the new one, people complain about that because the Turtles are probably in about 18 minutes of that film, too.
Yeah. It's April O'Neil and the Turtles.
Yep.
So for Spectre, I'm going to give it a we'll see because honestly, they don't show enough of what's actually going to be in this film.
For me, I'll say I'll see it if my friends are going to go see it and it's a thing. But otherwise, I want to watch it. So I'll get the couch ready because it's going to be fun no matter what. But
maybe that should be a rating if it's a thing.
If it's a thing.
If it's a thing, I'll go see it.
If people are doing it already, I guess I'll jump off the bridge too, But
we'll take it under consideration.
And then for the one, I really kind of want the one underneath Burn It to be send it to the negative zone, so it's so it never existed.
The negative zone, as if it never happened. All right, so those are our trailer reviews for this week. Take them for what you will, but I'm not 100% sold on any of the films that we reviewed this week.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see. And we want to thank everybody who's ever talked to us in social media ever in our lives. And
thank you, Internet, in general.
Please be sure to join us in the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And on YouTube, you can like and follow our videos there. We post a lot of stuff now, and we'll be posting more soon. Our
Check
Twitch
out
channel.
The Twitch channel. We got stuff going on all the time on Twitch.
Absolutely. And we got some blogs coming up soon, too, so keep an eye out for that. And, just join in on a Play on Nerds.
We want to talk to you people.
Yes, join in the conversation.
All right, so thanks again, Internet. Join us again next week for some great topic that's so amazing we can't talk about it yet.
We have a couple ideas out there. We'll have something planned for you.
It'll be good. 39, and then we're almost at 40, and then we're almost at 50, and then we might as well be at 100.
Then we'll take over the world. All right, stay dirty, my friends.